Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in Through the Ages. I'm at the moment with 2 games finished and 5 points. The game that you saw in the last video was a 4-player game where I finished at the 3rd position, and then there was a 2-player game that I was able to win against Caesar Salah. And at the moment, the group is quite challenging because E5 has finished half of his games so far and he managed to win all of them and is sitting there with 19 points, and with that putting really some pressure on me because in order to stay in the upper bracket, I have to win this group, and for that I have to overtake E5 in the standings. And a really important game in order to achieve that will be the next one that we are going to take a look at today, because it will actually be the 2-player game that I will play against E5. So that will be very important, because if I should lose this 2-player game and E5 would then be sitting at 23 points, then it would be really tough to still overtake him. But if I should manage to win this game, then I'm getting a bit closer, and that would be very important for my goal to win this group. Alright, but now without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. I'm playing this game in the 2nd position, and first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can first of all notice that there is Shakespeare in the game, which is always very important to take a look at in 2-player games. There's also Anthony Gaudi as a culture leader, there's Gandhi in H3 to potentially hide behind, we have also Chaplin, there's the internet but no Hollywood importantly. We have Bill Gates, Einstein, and Marie Curie, also Steve Jobs there as some lab leaders, so that could also be maybe be a viable option. In H2 we have some interesting wonders with the ocean liner service, Harvard College, and Suez Canal. We have some military action leaders with Napoleon and Catherine. James Cook is there together with the Suez Canal, and also Robespierre, of course, is a military action leader. In H1 we also have all of the military action leaders with Joan of Arc and Jan Žižka. There's Nostradamus to help with the strength. Michelangelo could potentially be interesting, especially with those H2 wonders also. And then there's Barbarossa and Columbus. In H1 we have the 2 Happy Face Lucian wonders with St. Peter's Basilica and Forbidden City. There's the Silk Road and the Taj Mahal. And E5 starts, and he is starting with taking Alex, which is probably fine. He probably doesn't have the greatest starting pick here, because now he takes Alex. But if I will take the library, and I will do that at my turn, because I think that's just clearly the best option, then there will be no wonder available for him for 1 civil action. The Stonehenge will just stay on 2 civil actions, so I think that would be a bit annoying. If he goes for the Colosseum, maybe that could be an interesting option, but the Colosseum is maybe not the greatest wonder, so maybe he doesn't want to go for that and instead just goes for Alex. And then, as said, I will go for the library. That means that at the next turn I can maybe just go for Aristotle or Clio. Clio works very nicely together with the library. Aristotle could potentially be interesting, so at the next turn I can decide which of those 2 leaders I want to go for. And then I have quite a nice wonder and also a very solid leader. And I was quite happy, especially because with taking the library I will let the Stonehenge stay on 2 civil actions. E5 either has to take it at his next turn or it will be discarded. So I think the library here is just a very strong pick, and also of course to take it away from E5. Then H1 starts, and E5 now has to make the decision whether he wants to take the Stonehenge or not for 2 civil actions, or if he maybe is fine to either wait for the Hanging Gardens or just skip the HA wonder. And he makes the decision that he wants to have the Stonehenge, and the 6 additional science can definitely be very helpful to boost the position in the early game. Now I have to make a decision if I want to rather go for Aristotle or for Cleopatra. I think both the leaders could potentially be viable here, and at the end I just went for Cleo because I think she does just work very nicely together with the library, and with Aristotle it's not 100% clear how much I will be able to get out of him. Maybe for Cleo, if I have the library finished, then there's a nice H1 leader. I could potentially also just switch to a new leader, or maybe I will manage to get another wonder going or something, or printing presses. And also Cleo isn't on a discard spot, and I thought that E5 could potentially just maybe build a second lab and maybe take the copy of Iron or something like this, or will maybe take 1 card from the row. And that means that if I take Aristotle, and then for example E5 just takes the Iron, then the Knights will stay on 2 civil actions. Now that I take Leo, if E5 goes for the Iron, the Knights will be available for 1 civil action. In a 2-player game it's maybe not too important to have the Knights, so it's not a big reason, but if there are not any other nice cards to take, it could still be nice to have the opportunity to take the knights for one civil action, and so that was also a small reason why I wanted to go for Cleo here, and no, at the end I went for Cleo. I could potentially start with building the lab and increasing my population. That could potentially mean that if e5 doesn't take the iron, maybe I have the science earlier to go for the iron, maybe I can even delay my third mine so that I can build an iron mine directly. On the other hand, when I build a lab now, I have committed to my second lab in a game where there's Shakespeare in the game. Can be quite nice to go for printing presses, and at the end I just went for building the mine and building the first step. And also if you have library in Clio, you have just a very nice sequence that you can do that works without any developments, and that is just to build a mine in the first step in the first turn. At the next turn you can build a second lab, and then in the turn after that you have exactly enough resource to finish the library. So I think that's just a very solid way to use Clio if you have the library, and so I just went for that. I don't have a free population, but there's the chance that e5 maybe will just use Alex at his politics phase. I draw 2 aggressions, and e5 isn't going for the iron because there's the Code of Laws available, and he's just willing to grab it for 3 civil actions. Yes, the additional science from the Stonehenge is willing to delay his second lab in order to get the Code of Laws, and I think it might be worth it. Those civil actions giving cards are definitely very contested in 2-player games, and I think especially the very strong 2-player players are often taking them for very expensive, and so I also adapted a little bit to that playstyle, and e5 also seems to value it very highly and wants to be able to invest the science of the Stonehenge very nicely. That, on the other hand, means that for me there will be some nice cards available at my turn. I will just increase my population, build a second lab, take the iron, the breakthrough. I think that's a very clean turn. I, at the next turn, can maybe finish the library. If there's a development reveal that gives additional science, maybe I can even start working on the iron, even though that probably means that I maybe can't make use out of Cleo's additional resources. And no, I also was really eyeing Nostradamus. I was fearing that maybe he could be taken away by e5, but he, after having taken the Code of Laws for 3 civil actions, has maybe some problems potentially to get out of corruptions. The Masonry could also be a very interesting card for him, so I was hoping that maybe there's a chance that Nostradamus will be available for me at the next turn, because then I thought it could be quite interesting to just finish the library. Then Cleo has done her job very nicely, and then I can go for Nostradamus at the next turn and just get a new leader immediately, and so I thought it could be very nice. But if not, then e5 at least has to pay a price to get Nostradamus, and maybe there will be some other leaders available for me at some point. I draw 2 cards, 2 events, so that would work very nicely in case I should get Nostradamus, and e5 indeed isn't going for Nostradamus, instead is going for the Masonry, develops it, finished the Stonehenge, sadly doesn't have the civil action at the end to also develop the Code of Laws immediately, but maybe can do this at the next turn, and no, has then 2 nice blue technologies and has invested the science of the Stonehenge very nicely, but at this point also has delayed his second lab by a bit. Maybe not too bad, because if there's a printing press coming down the row, he could potentially maybe still think about going for printing presses in order to be prepared for Shakespeare. No, but still, it's quite nice for him maybe to get a Masonry now and also have the Code of Laws, but he also had a brace to pay a price for it, while I got the iron, the breakthrough for only 1 civil action, so I was not too unhappy about all this. Then at my turn I don't want to use my politics phase because Nostradamus is still available for me, and I made a decision that I want to go for him, and then I rather wanted to keep those events in hand in order to seed them with him, especially because I have only 2 military actions at the moment, so I don't know how many new events I will draw, and for the Dark Ages I'm not sure if I want to commit to those, so I just didn't want to seed this turn. Also, I think I don't have a free population at the beginning of my turn, so I could miss out on the potential development of religion. I finished the library, getting up to 3 science production using the resource of Cleopatra again, and then I will replace her with Nostradamus, and at the next turn I can start seeding some events into the deck. I will have the full knowledge about the next event deck because there have been no events seeded yet, and I think that will be very nice. With my last civil action I increased my population, now I have a free population, and I just have that civil action out of the way. I could potentially, of course, think about taking some of those cards, but I think none of those cards is really worth it to be taken. Of course, a copy of Swordsman, it could be nice to have it, especially because the second copy will stay on 2 civil actions for e5, and that could mean that he maybe misses out on them, but I just think it's not too important in a 2-player game to take those technologies. Of course, if your opponent is threatening some strength, you have to be careful, but I have no Nostradamus, and no, I'm not willing to take the Swordsman here, especially with not having a tactic for them. And I draw 2 more events. I was happy to see it, because with the library I can at least keep 3 cards in hand, and with that it should now be guaranteed that I will be able to push an event, or hopefully over the next few turns in every turn. E5 will now use Alex, maybe mainly because now he actually is needing the yellow token, and then he goes for the Code of Laws, is going for Michelangelo, interestingly, an interesting choice, but I think it might be the right choice. He has already one happy face, he has the Masonry, there is a Silk Road coming down the road, which would work very nicely together with Michelangelo and the Masonry, just taking that wonder very efficiently for only a very low civil action cost, and then I think it's a very, very strong wonder, especially for him who is low in production. And there are also some interesting H2 wonders, as we said in the beginning, and so I think Michelangelo is quite an interesting choice and has quite a lot of potential. Then it's my turn. I start with seeding the call to arms, because the bonus from Nostradamus, the strength bonus, just works very nicely for that. The development of agriculture is revealed, and as you can see at my turn, I just go for the Silk Road, because I came to the conclusion that it is just too strong to have for e5. I think the Silk Road, with having the Masonry and also being able to take it so cheaply with Michelangelo, is something that I don't want to allow e5 to have, and even though I have to take it for a bit, quite a bit expensive, and I don't have the most civil actions at the moment, at the end it can still be a nice wonder for me, improving my economical position a bit, and also meaning that I produce even more culture together with Nostradamus. Even though I play against Michelangelo, maybe I have the chance to establish a little bit of a culture lead, and so at the end I went for the Silk Road. It means delaying the iron for a little bit, but it's maybe not too bad, and then to get out of corruption I increased my population. At the next turn I could just do a turn like building a step of the Silk Road, developing the iron with the breakthrough and the Silk Road bonus, and then going for an upgrade, and then I have one free civil action, so yeah, that could be an interesting turn at the next turn. And yeah, so that was my turn, going for the Silk Road denial. Of course, there could have been some alternatives. I said going for the iron, maybe taking one of those cards available for cheap, but I thought the Silk Road denial is too important here. I draw some more cards. e5 will also see it, and he pushes the immigration into the deck. He has already one additional happy face from the Stonehenge. With Michelangelo, he maybe has already some the desire to go for my happy faces anyway. The development of planning is revealed, and the options for that are development of politics, religion, or warfare, and we both have a free population and will take the religion at the end. For e5 it means also that he goes up to 4 culture production now, which is quite nice. e5 has Michelangelo, but he doesn't have any iron mines yet, but as an alternative solution he makes the decision to go for a 4th mine here. He has some additional happy faces, has still 2 free population, and with the additional resource production maybe it will be easier for him to make more work out of Michelangelo, so I think that's can maybe be quite a nice decision. I took the Silk Road away, but maybe at the next turn he can just go for the Forbidden City. That also works very nicely with the Masonry, but he has already all of his happy faces, and yeah, the civil action of course can be nice, but I was not too unhappy if maybe e5 goes for the Forbidden City. It might be the right call for him, but I thought it's not as strong as going for the Silk Road. Then I will see the Crusades into the deck. Hopefully I will be able to at least not lose to it with the strength bonus from Nostradamus. The development of crafts are revealed, and thanks to the development of crafts, with taking the resources, or with getting the resources, I can now build a step of the Silk Road, and then I can just go for 2 iron upgrades. I think that's a very clean turn. At the next turn I have exactly 5 resources, meaning that I have, having 4 civil actions, have exactly enough to just finish the Silk Road at the next turn if I want to, or if there's some important cards to take, then I can of course also make the decision to maybe go for the last iron upgrade first. And so I thought it's just a very clean turn, and yeah, at the end I don't think there's anything that is really a lot stronger. I just keep my events in hand, and I will draw 2 tactics now. e5 seats again, and he now pushes the reds into the deck. The development of settlement is revealed, giving every one of us an additional population, and the development of crafts will also allow it e5 to take and finish the Forbidden City immediately without having even to play the reserves. It's now at 6 civil actions. That's definitely something where I'm lagging behind a little bit. I'm only in 4 civil actions still, and then he's taking the Engineering Genius and the Drama. The Engineering Genius will of course be very helpful for him with having Michelangelo to maybe have the resources to go for even more wonders, and the Drama can of course be quite an important technology to have in 2-player games. Though I was a little bit surprised to see him taking the Drama. There's no Bach, and I think with Shakespeare being in the game, maybe the printing press is even the more important technology, because there are 2 copies of opera, only 1 of journalism, and Shakespeare is maybe the most just the strongest culture leader. E5 has now some free population. Maybe he just wanted to deny the Drama from me and wanted to take it away from me. But I think the printing press could be a very interesting card for him. Also, if he just goes for it immediately, it improves his economy by a little bit. So I felt like this could have been an interesting option for him. He now reveals the fighting band tactic, and I will now have my last H1 turn. I again will seed, pushing the historic territory 1 into the deck. The immigration is revealed. I could have considered to not seed, because the reds would be a little bit annoying, but at the end I was still willing to risk it, especially because there could also be the crusades revealed, and if I reveal it at my turn, I will actually be able to gain the additional culture or steal the additional culture from e5, and so I was willing to push. And immigration will give e5 an additional happy phase, but I didn't plan on building more happy phase buildings anyway, and with that it's not too bad, and I was happy to not see the reds, because that gives now me the opportunity to increase my population and make sure that I don't lose as much food to the reds. I could have potentially just finished the Silk Road. It could have been an option, but then I potentially would have lost a little food. I ideally want to continue seeding with Nostradamus, and alternatively I can go for 1 more iron upgrade, and also there is the last copy of Irrigation, and it can just be nice to have a food solution available in 2-player games. Also, if I get the Ocean Liner service, which could be nice to get, also maybe to take it away from e5 if I have the chance for it, then it is very nice to have the Irrigation as an efficient way and cheap way to get out of the famine issues later on in the game. And so also for that I thought it's maybe better to not just finish the Silk Road this turn and instead maybe take the Irrigation. I seeded a historic territory, which is at the moment I don't have any nice way to win it. I have no colonization cards, no colonization bonus, but it will take some time until it will be revealed. It's a bit tricky because there's a Suez Canal in there. I don't like it too much to push colonies if I don't have a clear way to win it. But the thing is, e5 has a lot of happy faces or 2 happy faces in the Forbidden City, so he really does need a happy face, while the happy face for me could actually be useful. So I thought colony is maybe potentially stronger for me, and with that I was willing to push it into the deck, because the pestilence could maybe be nice, or could also be an event that I could push, but I mean, maybe I could also push that and before the historic territory, but that can also potentially be a bit limiting, and for the Dark Ages I definitely didn't want to push this event, because if I make the decision to wait for an H2 government form, it could really backfire. There is the monarchy also that I could potentially consider going for if I don't want to be at the risk of missing out on a government form. But I didn't want to pay 2 civil actions for it. I didn't want to commit to it this turn, because I wanted to leave myself open to have a shot at getting one of the H2 government forms at the next turn very early. But I thought it could still be nice to have the option to go for the monarchy, and so I made a decision first of all to let it stay on 2 civil actions for e5, so he can't take it that cheaply. And also I made a decision, I will go for the iron upgrade, I will take the irrigation, and I consider taking the cultural heritage. Just getting 3 additional signs with the Silk Road and also a bit of additional culture can be quite nice. Getting even more signs can just be very useful. So I thought about taking the cultural heritage, and maybe if my plan is to just wait for an H2 government form, it might be the best thing to do, because the next turn maybe I can just finish the Silk Road then, and the cards that are coming down at the row at the moment are maybe not the greatest. So then it could maybe be nice. On the other hand, I'm very tight on civil actions at the moment, and it is a card that requires 2 civil actions, so even without any specific reason, or with the specific reason that I will talk about in a minute, it could still be the better decision to not take the cultural heritage. And at the end I just came to the conclusion that if there is no early government form from H2 available for me the next turn, if the monarchy is still available, I want to have the option to go for the monarchy, because it can just be very bad to be stuck on 4 civil actions. Maybe it could be fine to just wait for an H2 government form, but also with Nostradamus it could be nice to have 3 military actions, and I wanted to leave myself the option to go for the monarchy and then finish the Silk Road at the next turn. Because of that, instead of taking the cultural heritage, I rather just built one step of the Silk Road, and I also used my H1 military action now to reveal the tactics so that I will get more draws in an H2 and still have the tactic available. Now H2 will start, and E5 seats, and the event is the cultural influence. The call to arms is revealed, costing him 2 civil actions. Maybe it's not too bad for him. I mean, it's definitely annoying, but I think at the moment he could have, of course, taken one more yellow card or maybe the monarchy, but maybe later on in H2 there could have been more crucial cards that he maybe would be missing out on. So maybe it's not too bad, also especially if he has drawn something, but hopefully it will still be at least a bit helpful to get hit by this event. And also I was happy that that there were no crusades revealed, giving me the chance to reveal the crusades now at my turn. But the question is, do I really want to push? I could push the Dark Ages, and I will actually make the decision to go for the monarchy this turn, because there is, as you can see, no H2 government form revealed, and with E5 still waiting for one, it could maybe be nice. On the other hand, I have a bunch of science saved up. Even after going for the monarchy, I will have the better production, so it's a bit tricky if I really want to go for the Dark Ages. And then I also have the Pestilence, and at the moment E5 just has more free population, has the Forbidden City, so all of his population are happy, and I have one unhappy population. If I lose this, then I have still one unhappy population, only one happy population. So the question is, do I want to see it? At the end I made the decision to see it, because it just gives me 3 additional culture from Nostradamus, and if I hit the Crusades now, it would give me 4 additional culture from there. And at the end I made the decision to see the Pestilence, but I wasn't too happy about it. Maybe I could also just see the Dark Ages, because at least it could hurt E5 maybe a little bit more if he loses some science with this low science production, but at the moment he's only on 4, and so just felt a little bit bad. But yeah, the Pestilence is also not too great. But I at least get rewarded, and indeed the Crusades are revealed, meaning that now I have indeed a bit of a culture lead, now with the additional culture from Nostradamus and the Crusades. Then, as said, I will go for the monarchy. I think it can just be a bit annoying to play on 4 civil actions, especially E5 with having Michelangelo, Engineering Genius, Masonry. He really could like it a lot to get a nice wonder, especially maybe the Ocean Liner Service, also in Harvard College. And if I have now 5 civil actions, it's just a lot more doable to maybe take one of those wonders away, which could still be nice for myself. I have some nice iron production. If I get the Ocean Liner Service for myself, that could be nice, and with 4 civil actions, that's just really tough to do. Of course, if there's something like Constitutional Monarchy or Republic available very early, maybe at the next turn I could regret it having gone for Monarchy, but those could also be late. Those could maybe be denied, because E5 also still needs a government form, so it would not only be a denial, but also a card that he needs for himself, and with that it just felt too risky to not go for the monarchy. I will have now more draws, giving me more chances to maybe get some nice events to seed with Nostradamus, and I maybe have the chance to take one of those strongest H2 wonders if those are available. I do draw some cards, sadly no events, so the next turn I have to make the decision if I want to push the Dark Ages or if I want to skip seeding with Nostradamus. There's no, or there is an early H2 wonder, the statue, but maybe no Ocean Liner Service, no Harvard College, and so E5 makes the decision to go for the St. Peter's Basilica. Maybe a wonder that's not really necessary in terms of what he really needs, because his happy faces are nicely covered. But of course, with Michelangelo, the St. Peter's Basilica has the potential to score a lot of culture. He has some resources that he needs to invest in, and the culture production is also definitely quite important in 2-player games. So I think the St. Peter's Basilica is a very nice wonder here for him. He also takes the wave of nationalism, plays the reserves for food so that he can increase his population one more time. The Pestilence definitely feels a bit worse and worse. With him having that many population, it basically doesn't hurt him at all. Well, it definitely could potentially hurt me quite a bit. The last event in the deck are the Reds, and as you can see I made the decision to seed the Dark Ages. It's maybe a bit questionable. I will spend some science this turn on the Opera, So, but I will still end my turn with more science than e5, so I would maybe lose potentially more science. But as said, e5 still needs a government form, is low in science, so maybe it hurts him a little bit more if he loses a bit of science. And if I lose a little bit of science more, of course it is maybe bad for me at the end, but at least they do get a culture from Nostradamus, so I do get that, and with that I was willing to cede it, especially because I know about it, I can prepare for it, and if e5 maybe tries to save up some science for an h2 government form, then that could potentially backfire for him. And also this turn there is one of the culture leaders in the row, Anthony Gaudi, and there is a copy of journalism, which can be a very important technology in a game where there is Shakespeare. So this turn I maybe have to make some decisions because there are also both copies of opera. I could potentially think about something like taking the opera and the journalism and then setting myself up for Shakespeare with having taken the journalism away. It would mean that if I can't really go for Shakespeare until there are multimedias available. So that could definitely be an option. I could also even take the multimedia, develop it, build one to just use some science already. And I could even think about taking the journalism and Anthony Gaudi. Then I have a culture leader for certain, and I've taken the journalism away from e5 so that he can't go for Shakespeare. But if I take Anthony Gaudi, then the opera will be discarded, and that could also be a very nice card to have. And also I don't spend any science, meaning that now I could really get hit by some bad Dark Ages. And at the end, I made a decision to leave the journalisms in the row. I was not certain if that is the right call because Shakespeare is just so strong, and e5 has a lot of repopulation. If he takes the journalism, he's nicely set up for Shakespeare. So maybe that is a mistake. Maybe I have to deny the journalisms here. I at the end made a different decision. I took the opera, took Anthony Gaudi, will actually elect him already this turn, and then I will build one opera, spending some science so that I don't lose as much to the Dark Ages, and also going up to 10 culture production already now. While Shakespeare is maybe the stronger culture leader than Anthony Gaudi, I can really get a lot of culture production going now, which could even be quite important because there's also the cultural influence coming. And no. But there is the potential for e5 to go for very strong Shakespeare, and I was a bit concerned about this. But on the other hand, I, with also having won the Crusades, have quite a bit of a culture lead, and maybe then that will be an advantage if e5 at some point will go for Shakespeare. And I also thought it's not too bad to switch to Anthony Gaudi now and get rid of Nostradamus. First of all, there are no strength events coming, and second of all, I didn't have any events at the end of my turn, so it could have been that I don't draw any that I want to seed, and then Nostradamus isn't giving me any culture, where Anthony Gaudi is now giving me some culture for certain, and could even give me a lot of culture if the cultural influence is revealed very quickly. e5 this turn will finish the St. Peter's Basilica. As you can see, that immediately improves his culture production by quite a bit. He then takes the cannons, the breakthrough, and also the patriotism, gets some strong yellow cards and also one important military technology. But very interestingly, he doesn't take the journalism, and I'm really not sure if that is the correct decision for him. I think the journalism would be quite an important technology with Shakespeare being in the game. Maybe he has other plans, maybe he has already a tactic like fortifications, and maybe wants to go for example, Napoleon and tries to do something with the military. But no, I think taking journalism now and setting up for Shakespeare, especially also to take it away from me, because the journalism is actually also quite a nice technology to have for me now with having Anthony Gaudi. So I was a bit surprised to let him, to not see him not taking the journalism. I seed now the National Pride into the deck, and a cultural influence is revealed. I gained 10 additional culture, but with finishing the St. Peter's Basilica, e5 also has made sure to get a nice culture production with Michelangelo, so I only gained one more culture out of it. And of course I immediately grabbed the journalism. It's a nice card for me. I really want to take it away from e5, so now it can't really easily go for Shakespeare, so that is a card that I really want to grab. There is also a copy of Constitutional Monarchy in the row, and e5 still needs a government form, but I don't think I should deny it here, because e5 can't easily go for it. It's already the middle of h2, there's a Republic still in the deck, so I think those 3 civil actions would be wasted, especially because there are some interesting cards for me to take on the row, and those cards I will just take: the Revolutionary Idea, the Urban Growth, developing the journalism just to spend some science for the Dark Ages, and then I will also take the team sports, because at some point I will need a happy face solution, and it just works works very nicely with Anthony Godi. Sadly, there's no Pierre in the game, but I still thought now having I have the chance to take a happy face revolution now for one civil action. I maybe can't use the civil action very nicely in a different way anyway. I could develop the irrigation. I was still speculating to maybe get a selective breeding instead. That could of course been an alternative, just committing to the irrigation, especially maybe if I will still go for the ocean liner service. But at the end I made a decision that I want to have the team spots available. I draw some more cards, and I draw the Terrorism and the Ravages of Time. Both events I probably don't want to seed, because losing the Stonehenge wouldn't hurt e5 that much with having Forbidden City and St. Peter's Basilica. e5 seeds now, and the Dark Ages are revealed, and I was not too unhappy how those worked out at the end, because with only 2 production, losing the 2 science is maybe at least similarly hurtful than losing 3 science for me, maybe even more hurtful. And also I gained the card from Nostradamus for seeding it, so I think it turned out very nicely for me. And e5 this turn will go for the drama. He will just increase his culture reduction even more, gains a lot of culture out of Michelangelo, builds 2 dramas, is now at 17 culture reduction, really showing the potential from Michelangelo. Michelangelo is scoring him 9 additional culture now, so yeah. Definitely, Shakespeare would probably be proud to see this, and no. But with missing the journalism, Shakespeare is maybe now not a fitting leader for his civilization. He then takes the strategy, and as you can see, doesn't even take the constitutional monarchy, instead takes the strategy, the breakthrough. And that could be an indicator that he rather plans on going for the Republic, because the question is, of course, what H2 leader does he want to go for? Shakespeare is not really a very strong option unless he's hoping for an early multimedia, and with that, Robespierre could be an interesting transitional leader, and then, of course, the Republic might be the better option for him than the constitutional monarchy. And at my turn, I don't want to see it, I just... no. I could consider seeding the Prosperity into the deck, but e5 has that many happy faces, so I won't deny the Ocean Liner service. That will be an interesting thing to talk about, and so it could be considered, because the food could just be a lot more valuable for me, and maybe at some point I will go for team sports, and I also will go get a nice amount of food out of the Prosperity. But at the end I made a decision against seeding. The Terrorism is not that great, Ravages of Time is not that great, and yeah, the decision that I have to face, see if it is maybe worth it to take the Ocean Liner service away. But I don't think it's worth it, because it would take my whole turn. I would need to spend all 5 civil actions on it, and ideally I want to finish it at the next turn, but it again requires 4 civil actions, meaning I have only 1 civil action to do something else, and I think I have to take the cannons at the next turn, because if I just take the Ocean Liner service, I miss out on the Rifleman, and things definitely could get a bit dangerous. But if I take the cannons, then I don't have the civil action to develop the irrigation, meaning I'm missing a nice way to get out of famine, and it just felt too costly at the end. And while the Ocean Liner service is definitely a very strong thing to get for e5, with getting it cheaply with Michelangelo and having the masonry, it's a very strong wonder for him. But on the other hand, he has already 3 free population, so if I just take it away, he is still fine with this population, can maybe just go for the Harvard College instead, and I think it would just become too costly for me. And so instead I went for the justice system, making sure that I have a bit more civil actions available, which I think is very important. And then I also wanted to build this journalism, increasing my culture production, increasing my science production, and with the last 3 civil actions I then made a decision to take the Rifleman, a card that we both could use very nicely. Maybe it could mean now that e5 can't go for a nice tactic, so it could still be an important technology to have. And then with my last civil action I'm taking the Engineering Genius. I could have also played a revolutionary idea, Dark Ages are now out of the deck, but I thought it could still be nice to have the Engineering Genius. Probably I won't go at the Ocean Liner service, maybe I could get a Harvard College, and potentially, if things go right, a Suez Canal could also still be interesting, because there is a historic territory in the deck, which was also a reason why I maybe wanted to push, because if it is revealed on my turn, I have maybe a bonus, and with only 1 colonization card, it's definitely not certain if I'm able to win it, so it could be nice to at least have the chance to win the tiebreaker. But if I should manage to win the historic territory, on the other hand, of course, I get now 3 additional draws, maybe I will get an additional defense card. That's of course also an argument, but yeah, if I should win it and maybe draw an H2 colony, and the Suez Canal could get interesting. Of course I don't have a colony yet, so it's only there are some ifs, but in addition with those other H2 wonders, I just thought Engineering Genius at the end could still be a nice card to have. And as you can see, I do indeed get some interesting colonies. The vast territory could be really helpful if I miss out on the ocean liner service now, and maybe also don't have a nice way to get into the selective breeding. Then the additional yellow tokens from the vast territory could be very interesting. So the Suez Canal could definitely be an option now, especially if I win the colony. And of course, what also is great to see is the fortifications tactic. Now I just need this copy of cannons, and I will have a nice tactic to go for. So I was quite happy about this draw. The only thing missing could maybe be a defense card, because it could be quite nice to win the historic territory now that I have maybe a chance to go for a nice Suez Canal. E5 will go for the ocean liner service, I think definitely the right decision for him, and then he takes the scientific method that the next turn is exactly 6 science available, so he then can maybe start increasing his science production. And interestingly, he was already willing to develop the cannons. Interesting in that sense that I have no knowledge about the fortifications. Maybe he has something like mobile artillery, but I found it a bit interesting that he was willing to develop it, but maybe he had some hand space issues. As you can see, this turn I do actually see the prosperity into the deck, and now, of course, as said, E5 has a lot of happy faces. There's also actually a red cross, so I was not totally certain about it, but I just thought maybe I want to have the chance to open the historic territory at my turn and win the tiebreaker. And this turn I was willing to see that. I could have potentially maybe also seeded it at the turn before. If there would have been no pestilence revealed, and I thought about a turn where I go for 3 irrigation farms so that I can increase my population again immediately at the next turn. Of course, then maybe the pestilence could be revealed and I have to destroy something, but I thought it could potentially be an interesting option. Now that isn't an option because I have no free population available. I definitely want to have the cannons with having the fortifications tactic. I also want to have the reserves, because with the Silk Road that means that I can maybe get an additional population out, which could be important. And then I will go for the irrigation. There's of course still a selective breeding, but first of all I don't know for certain if I will get it. Maybe E5 could deny it. And also I might just have too much to do at the time when the selective breeding will be available. I think it is nice. I also have a relatively full hand, so it's difficult for me to find other ways to spend my civil actions efficiently. So I think it is just nice to get those civil actions out of the way already this turn, and if I indeed should be able to win the historic territory, or maybe even if I don't win it, maybe I can get a Suez Canal in the vast territory, and then maybe the irrigation can be a sufficient happy food solution, and maybe with the help of the reserves, even without the additional yellow tokens, I will be able to get enough population. So I went for the irrigation for 2 upgrades. Then the question is what to do with the last civil action. I think it could be very nice to just play the revolutionary deal, or maybe just develop the team sports for 1 science. But if I don't take any more cards from the row now, then the age won't end. I thought it could maybe be potentially quite big, because if I could have the potential to just keep Michelangelo for 1 more turn. Maybe he doesn't necessarily, he wouldn't do it even necessarily, because it could be quite strong for him to go for Republic Revolution immediately, but I just didn't want to give him the option. And even if he goes for the Republic Revolution, at least ending the age costs him a civil action, because he doesn't get a civil action back when replacing Michelangelo. Also, he doesn't have the chance to take one of those other H2 wonders with Michelangelo, which could be strong maybe before he takes Robespierre or something. So I just thought it could be nice here to end the age, and I made the decision to take the Richland. Maybe a card that I don't really need, but I still was playing with the idea of building a 3rd farm to get a bit more food production going, and now I could build it very cheaply. But it could be a bit tricky to get it going, because now when I lose the 2 yellow tokens I will have some uprising issues, and so I was not too certain about taking this Richland. I thought about other ways with ending the age. Maybe could have gone for 1 irrigation upgrade less, and then taken the cavalryman, which is actually the last copy, but I have the fortification, so of course I don't really need it. I could have taken another, maybe one of those yellow cards, maybe the frugality. Maybe that could be potentially the more interesting option. At the end I just went for the 2 upgrades, and to have those out of the way, and then I thought maybe the Richland can still do some stuff, but I wasn't certain about this decision. I do draw some cards. I was hoping to get another defense card. Sadly not, so if e5 should cede now, he only needs one h2 defense card in order to win the territory, which I was not too happy about, especially because I have a little bit of a culture lead, and then I wouldn't like to see it to if e5 catches up 6 culture very cheaply. He loses Michelangelo now, and then at his turn he will develop the scientific method, goes for Robespierre, goes for the Republic, has now a lot of civil actions, and with those civil actions has probably now the stronger economy, can go for more science production, has the ocean liner service, lots of population, so he has now a strong economy, and maybe he can do some nice stuff with that. I definitely was a little bit concerned, but on the other hand, I have maybe the chance to create a little bit of a culture lead. I can go for more culture buildings, and that of course is also a bit of an advantage. And also e5 didn't seed, meaning now I have maybe the chance again to seed and maybe open this territory even with having the ability to win the tiebreaker, because now e5 would again need 2 defense cards, and with that I also made the decision to seed and seeded the popularization of science into the deck. I wasn't willing to push a territory yet, because no, I was hoping to win this territory, and then I would probably lose my defense card, but sadly e5 is able to win the territory and is sending the warrior 2 colonization cards away, so sadly he has the 2 cards, is now catching up a bit in culture. At least he doesn't need a happy face, but I definitely would have liked to win it, because that also would have made it a lot easier for me to handle my uprising problems. That was also the way how I thought maybe I could make use out of this rich land, build a 3rd farm. If I win the territory, could play the reserves for food, go for a 3rd farm, get more food production going, but sadly e5 has the colonization cards and is able to win the colony. I will nonetheless play the reserves for food, or maybe it's even more necessary now because I have to fix my uprising issue and I don't want to delete anything. I could of course go for the organized religion, but I have already the team sports in hand, so I play this for food, increase my population, and then I will just go for the architecture and build 1 opera, increasing my culture production. The architecture will just make those buildings very cheap, which can be very nice. And then with my last civil action I went for the frugality, because I don't have the greatest food production, and so especially with the Silk Road I think it will be a very helpful card for me. And with going up to 16 culture production, now when we take a look after my turn, I definitely have a bit of a culture lead, but it is not too big. I have the bigger production, but e5 is having that many civil actions and population. Maybe he has the chance to build up something nice, but I'm also putting a bit of pressure on him with having that nice culture production going. I also draw the impact of architecture and impact of technology immediately. I think I have to be a bit careful about those impacts, because with having that strong of an economy, e5 has maybe the potential to score quite big in those impacts, so I shouldn't see them in lightly, but it could still be nice to have those available as options. Then e5 will go for another theater, get some cheap 2 more culture production going, plays the wave of nationalism, plays the patriotism, is building 2 cannons. It's really looking like he has the fortifications tactic, but we know that he doesn't have it. Maybe he hasn't the mobile artillery, maybe he's just building them as a bluff, or maybe hoping for some h3 tactics, or as I said, he has the mobile artillery tactic. No, but he is getting stronger, preparing for those events, but there are actually no strength events coming, at least from my side. There's 1 event that I don't have knowledge about, and then with this other civil actions, he will take the selective breeding, the oil, goes for an upgrade, and takes the revolutionary idea. I think the oil is an interesting pick, because I don't think it would be very nice for me to go for the oil. Maybe it could be an interesting idea to go for 2 upgrades, but it could also be very nice to save up the science for something like democracy. And for e5, he can only start investing into it in the next turn, and 2-player games are over very quickly, so I'm not certain about the idea of going for the oil. It is Marie Curie, so it opens up the possibility maybe to go for 1 more leader, and yes, with having Robespierre, he maybe wants to have an early replacement, but he could have also just taken a reserves instead of the oil, and maybe that could also be a nice option. I this turn want to push. And there is indeed one strength event seated by e5, at least it is opened on my turn, so I can choose what I will lose. I pushed a vast territory just because now I have 2 colonization cards in hand. e5 has just sent away some colonization cards, and I still thought it could be helpful to get a vast territory if it is revealed relatively quickly. The international negotiations are revealed now. It's a bit tough. I don't want to lose any food. I want to be able to increase my population now with the frugality so that I can get another population out at the next turn. And also losing science would hurt quite a bit. I want to be able maybe to go for the democracy at some point. And so at the end I just paid 3 resources. That is the thing I have the most of. But it's of course not too great. Those resources might be used very nicely by e5. So not great, but at least I was able to choose what I want to lose. I played a frugality this turn, and then the question is what do I want to do? I first of all, to get out of corruption, will build one more opera, going up to 19 culture production, making sure that I have full happy faces again. It will also mean getting one more food out of the prosperity. I'm not committing to the team sports yet, but yeah, I just wanted to get even more culture production going, even though the team sports of course would mean more food. There is the internet, which has the potential to be quite a nice wonder for me, so that is definitely something that I could consider just taking. Definitely an interesting option. And maybe it could be the best option, but at the end I thought that it could maybe also be fine to leave myself open for the other wonders. United Nations could be decent. Maybe I can do something with the Red Cross. Maybe the Manhattan Project could potentially be interesting. And so I in the end didn't want to spend 3 civil actions on the internet, and instead I made a decision to take the tanks. And with that, I just thought maybe there's the chance that I am shutting the military options down a little bit for e5, because he has only the cannons at the moment. If he indeed has mobile artillery, then that could make a big difference whether he will be able to get the tanks or not. With the tanks, if he has nice tactic, especially maybe if he has also the mechanized army tactic drawn, he definitely has the potential to put quite a bit of pressure on me. I don't have the most population. It could be annoying if I need to start building some military. So I thought just denying those tanks could maybe save myself a bit of trouble, and I also don't have any cavalry technologies available. Maybe I don't really need them because I have the fortifications, but now I'm open for H3 tactics, and that could of course also potentially be important. And with my last 2 civil actions, I developed the team sports and then just take the reserves. Could have also played a revolutionary idea, but now I leave myself the chance to maybe play it with the Silk Road bonus at some point. Then I will draw some new events or some new cards. Sadly no events, but wars and aggressions. Probably I won't make any use out of those. e5 seeds, the prosperity is revealed now. He gains a lot of food, but actually only 7 because he didn't have enough blue tokens to cover all of the 8 food. And I gain 4 additional food. I think even though of course e5 gets more food out of it, I still think it worked out relatively nicely for me, because I think for me the additional population is a lot more important. And e5, it could still be nice for him. He can now increase his population additional time, and also then he has a little bit of food left, meaning when he now very soon gets in the next area of his yellow bank, he doesn't have immediately some famine issues. He will go for the oil this turn, so he is at least consequent and also uses the oil now, but I think it's relatively late. But now he has it already in hand, and it maybe has a nice impact for it also already, like impact of industry, and it could still be nice to have those oil mines. I didn't want to push. I said with e5, especially now that is that bigger for production, I don't want to push the impact of architecture, and as you can see, I will actually go for the Manhattan Project. I did try out some different ideas. I could also build a journalism, just get more culture production going. But I think I have to be a bit careful here, because e5 can just take and finish the Manhattan Project, is then already at 19 strength. If he's maybe just developed strategy or satellites, he's at 22. And if I don't have the Manhattan Project, then only if I, for example, go for 1 fortifications tactic, I'm only at 12 strength and I have only 3 military actions. I have not the most civil actions, so I can't easily just maybe threaten to take something like military theory, which might be taken away by e5 anyway. Even though if he goes for the Manhattan Project indeed, then it would be a bit costly to take it away, but I also don't have the most civil actions, so If he has a war drawn, he could maybe just declare it, go for the Manhattan Project, score a bit of culture, and put some pressure on me. I have to destroy some stuff, and that would be quite annoying. And so I thought it might be just best for me if I take it for myself. Getting the additional strength without requiring any population will be very important, and I just take another option away from e5 to maybe punish me potentially with the military. And then my first instinct was to just finish the Manhattan Project immediately, getting me out of corruption. Also I can use the engineering genius, which is nice. But I at least thought about to delay finishing the Manhattan Project. Instead, I could, for example, increase my population, build a team sports. I might want to build one at some point anyway, and then I get also one additional culture from Ranto Nigodi right now. Maybe I also have the chance to make the Manhattan Project bigger. But I think at the end it's best to finish it, and the main reason for that is that it makes me open again to even take another wonder, even with having 6 civil actions, even if it is on the 3 civil action area and then it costs 6 civil action, I would be able to just take a wonder, and maybe that could be important because there's only one wonder left. It works very nicely for e5 at the moment. That's the United Nations. With having 4 wonders already, that would score him 20 points. And could be a very decent wonder, so it could be interesting to take that away from him. And the other wonder that e5 can't really nicely go for, the red cross, could also be very interesting for me, because now that I don't spend any food after having gotten some additional food from the prosperity, and also with having those reserves in hand, I could potentially take the red cross and then finish it at a later turn. And e5 at the moment has only 2 food saved up, so yeah, at the end just thought it could be very important to have the option to take one of those h3 wonders. And also I have the strength now immediately. Of course, I know that there are no strength events coming, but maybe e5 is just a little bit afraid of strength events, and maybe it could make a difference for him whether he is willing to push or not. If he has impact in hand, it only gives him a small benefit. Maybe he makes the decision that it's not worth it to risk any bad events, so that also could have a small impact. And then I draw 2 times the modern army tactics. Sadly no impacts, but no, maybe there are also more impacts that are better for e5 anyway. e5 seeds, the popularization of science is revealed. We both score the same amount of culture for it. It's good for me to see it revealed, because now e5 will go for the multimedia and increase his science production by quite a bit, so it would have been better for him to see it as the last event. And then he also takes the military theory. And then it's my turn. I again can't push, and I again will just take a wonder, and I'm willing to take the red cross because e5 didn't take a copy of reserves, didn't increase his food production. That means that he can't build a step at the next turn, and I at my next turn will be able to build all of the steps. With already having quite a bit of a culture lead, I thought that getting 31 additional culture from the red cross, and I will even now still get a culture from Anthony Gaudi at the end of my turn, I thought that really will be very difficult for e5 then to catch up. Even if he gets the United Nations and maybe some strong impacts, it will be very difficult. He maybe got a little bit unlucky that all of the h3 leaders apart from Mahatma Gandhi are very late, so that he had to keep Robespierre maybe for longer than he wanted to. And no, and I thought with having the red cross now, it will be quite a challenge for e5 to catch up with impacts and converting his economy. And I again draw some cards, and this time I do draw some impacts that I maybe can see it. Impact of balance could maybe potentially be seedable. Impact of culture could be very interesting, but I have to be careful, because e5, if he builds some more culture buildings, definitely also could have the chance to win it, especially if he maybe goes for Marie Curie. He seeds, and the National Pride is revealed, so I gain even 5 additional culture again. And then e5 can now take the communism, will do a revolution, could potentially cost him to go for a nice impact, but maybe he has some nice ones already in hand, and he can go for it very cheaply. He scores 3 culture for it with Robespierre. After that will go for Steve Jobs. He has the chance to develop some technologies, will develop the military theory, builds another multimedia, takes the endowment, takes the reserves, takes the modern infantry, and then also develops the selective breeding, scoring another for culture with Steve Jobs, and also having it available to solve his potential famine issues. I, at my turn, as you can see, seeded the impact of balance. I thought about pushing the impact of culture, and I have a way to probably secure winning it, but it would be a bit of a commitment, and at the end I rather wanted to seed an impact maybe that's a bit safer, and the impact of balance at the moment e5 has 2 more than that, but I thought it's unlikely that he will improve it, and then it's just giving me 1 culture, and now I also see if I am able to win the vast territory or not. And I was willing, or I can only bid my warrior, I was willing to do that in the 2 colonization cards, but e5 is at the end able to win it and is willing to send a cannon away. And this turn there is the democracy available. I have saved up some science, so I will just go for the democracy, play the reserves, finish the red cross, and then the question is what to do with the last civil action. I thought about playing the revolutionary idea, then of course before playing the reserve so that I get a Silk Road bonus for it, but I probably don't have the chance to use the science very nicely at the next turn anyway, because my idea was definitely to make use out of the impact of culture, and for that I might need to build quite a bunch of culture buildings. And so at the end my first instinct was to take the multimedia, because that could allow myself to gain, now when I don't take it and don't get the movies, I maybe could have the chance to build 1 more opera and 2 more journalisms at the next turn, but with having the multimedia I could manage to get similar amount of cultures, but with requiring 1 less population, meaning that I don't need to destroy 1 more stuff. So I thought about the multimedia, but at the end I actually went with Marie Curie, interestingly. I could also just go for Einstein at the next turn, that could maybe be a solid play, but the thing is Marie Curie, she is just giving me very, very few value with having those iron mines going 1 science and 1 culture reduction at the end, but the thing is the 1 culture reduction could actually have quite an impact, because I will now lose Antoni Gaudi, losing 4 culture reduction, going back down to 18, and at the next turn, as said, I can go for 1 opera and 2 journalisms, increasing my culture reduction by 7 and losing 4, so I would be at 25. And when I go for the multimedia, I can do it more efficiently, but I can't increase my amount of culture reduction if I remember it correctly. And yeah, I would be at 25, and e5 could just go for the United Nations, but it isn't in the row yet, and it could be a bit expensive for him to go for it, and then maybe he will just build as many culture buildings as possible. I thought maybe he will go for 1 multimedia, 1 drama and 1 religion, and then he would still have some resource left to also get the Steve Jobs activation in, so I thought that's what he maybe wants to do. And if he builds those 3 buildings, then he also is at 25, meaning the 1 additional culture reduction from Marie Curie might actually allow me at the end to play the impact of culture. And with getting Bill Gates or Einstein, I just wouldn't get additional culture reduction from the leader. So that at the end was the reason to take Marie Curie, but I forgot a little bit about 1 thing, and that is that I thought about the United Nations and whether e5 will go for it, and I thought maybe he will actually not go for it, especially if it will stay on the 3 civil action area for him, because he might miss out on playing Endowment, using Steve Jobs, because he has to play the reserves to finish, and if it is in 3 he can just finish the United Nations and do nothing else. So depending on his impacts he might maybe do something different. But of course if he does something different, then the United Nations is also available for me, and maybe then I would actually like to go for it, and then maybe I don't really lead Marie Curie, but in case, yeah, it could still be nice to have the option to definitely go for the impact of culture. But as I said, if e5 goes for those buildings, maybe it is best to just finish the United Nations anyway and don't be concerned about the impact of culture too much. But I mean, it could still be nice to get a +10, and the additional culture reduction could be nice anyway, so it's maybe at the end also not too bad. But it was something that I just forgot, that maybe it could be nice for me to finish the United Nations for myself. I draw the mechanized army tactic 2 times, so I have now drawn 2 times in H3 2 copies of the same tactic in 1 draw. And e5 our seeds opens the impact of science, a nice impact for him, getting a bit closer to me. And he makes the decision to not go for the United Nations. He will just develop the modern infantry, goes for an upgrade, and then another upgrade, interestingly, plays the endowment and goes for 2 more warriors. And that's on one hand really looking like impact of strength, but also looking quite a bit like impact of harmony. So maybe he is preparing for those impacts, and then he will just end his turn. And then I have my last turn, and as you can see I won't see the impact of culture, because now I realized that maybe just finishing the United Nations is indeed an interesting option. Of course, if I can't evaluate the impact of culture with it, then maybe it could still be an option to increase my culture production and get a plus 10 from the impact of culture. But the good news is that I have one less culture production, but if I just manage to get one more culture production going, I can finish the United Nations and evaluate the impact of culture with it. And at the end, that was what I will do. I just think that maybe scores me the most culture. I need to disband a warrior in order to go for this line, so that might just cost me 4 culture from the impact of harmony, but that's maybe not too bad. Maybe I could also really play around Impact of Harmony and build a bunch of warriors or something, but at the end I just thought I will disband this warrior. I could just elect Marie Curie to get the additional culture reduction, but I think it's just better to build this religion, and then I will just finish the United Nations for 20 points, can evaluate the impact of culture because I'm winning the tiebreaker at my turn, and then I will now go into the final impacts with quite a big lead, and even though E5 has the stronger economy, I don't think there's any combination of impacts for him to win this game. The first impact is the impact of strength, which is plus 10 for E5. Then we have the impact of balance, which was seeded by me, which gives him plus 2. There is indeed the impact of harmony, so that, then the last turn of E5 definitely makes sense, giving him plus 20 against me, so quite a strong impact. And the last one is the impact of wonders. We both have quite a lot of wonders. I actually have more wonders than E5, but E5 has the earlier wonders, and because of that he is still scoring more with the impact of wonders. But at the end I am able to win this game and finish before E5. And I think at the end the game went relatively smoothly for me. I had the advantage that I had a bit of a culture lead and a culture leader, and with that a better culture production. E5 maybe got a bit unlucky with the late H3 leaders, and I also thought cards were available in H3 at a nice timing for me. I had a chance to go for the Manhattan Project, which was also definitely a denial, but then I had a chance to go for the Red Cross, the United Nations, then was relayed for E5, so he didn't really have a chance to go for it, because it definitely could have been a nice option for him to finish it. The democracy was revealed at my turn, so I think during H3 I made maybe some important decisions. I think the Manhattan Project could have made life a bit annoying for me, and but then I just think it went very smoothly. And before, I think E5 went for something quite strong with Michelangelo. Maybe could have taken journalism at this one turn, then he would have had the option to go for Shakespeare, but he may rather went for the Robespierre Revolution, but then maybe got a bit punished with the late H3 leaders. No, but at the end I am able to win this game, and when we remember the standings from the beginning, that is quite important, and now definitely leaves me the running to potentially still win the group. So a very important win, and now after this game is finished, we can now also take a look at the standings, and there has also another game been finished where I was involved, the 2-player game against treitze. I won't show this in this channel. I again will link the replay code in the description of the video, and if you want to take a look at this game without knowing the result, you have to stop the video now, because we will now take a look at the standings and also take a look at how the other game finished against treitze. And as you can see, I have now 4 games finished and 13 points. And when you take a look at the 2-player games, I have now won 3 of them, meaning I was able to win the 2-player game against treitze. It was a game where I, at the end, needed to hide a little bit behind Gandhi and took away some military options with that from treitze, and with that was able to win. And with that, it's definitely already looking a bit better in the standings. I am still 6 points behind E5, so that's still a lot, and definitely E5 has still the better position at the moment. But I have one less game finished, and with that, and with still some games to come where I play against E5, I have it in my own hands. It will be important that I will finish before E5 and the games that I will still have against him. But if I should do this, then I still have good chances to win the group. But it definitely will be challenging. I think E5 has definitely shown that he is quite a strong player with, on the one hand, results that he got in those games where I wasn't involved, where I just managed to win all the time, but also in the games that we just saw from him. So that will definitely still be very interesting. I think for Caesar Sala, Yeah, it will be difficult even if he wins all of the last 3 games. Yeah, definitely a lot needs to go right for him to still continue to have a chance to win the group. And treitze for him, the stage isn't really going that well so far. So yeah, he definitely won't be able to win the group, and yeah, maybe can get a bit of points in still in the last 2 games. Alright, then I hope it was an interesting game, an interesting video for you. Thank you for watching, and yeah, then see you in the next video.